You're listening to the Ordinary Joe's podcast with Joe D and Eric B.
All right, we are back for another podcast. This is part 2 of the movie sequels. Last week we did bad movie sequels. This week we're going to talk about good movie sequels, or movie sequels that was even better than the original, right?
Ooh.
It's gonna be fun. I
Blasphemy.
actually wrote a list. I don't usually go write a list, but this week I had to write a list because last week I was going off the top of my dome and it didn't sound right.
I mean, there's a lot to choose from. So.
Oh my God, is there? All right, so I am Eric B.
And I'm Joe D. And we are the Ordinary Joes. On that piece.
All right.
All right.
Let's get this started.
All right. So, do you want me to start?
No, I'm going to kick it off this time because last week I got a lot of Star Wars fans who were kind of annoyed with me about the prequels of the Phantom Menace and all that stuff. So, I'm going to give redemption. I said, there is going to be a good part to this story. So, I'm going to go back to the beginning, the 70s, and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi to me were good sequels to the regular Star Wars. And again, for you guys who are giving me grief, there's a reason why I didn't like, the prequels, Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, even that little boy. I forget what that boy's name is in the first one. Yeah. I just didn't feel that beginning, but Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, that one thing in Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father." I mean, that was like a WTF kind of moment for a lot of us. We're like, what? Your dad is James Earl Jones?
Why is he a white guy?
Why is he? Later on, he comes to become Mufasa. So, I mean, to me, that's the reason why. I mean, I love Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars geek. And when it comes to sequels, you have to do it right. And when they took us back to the beginning, the 3 prequels that they did, and like I said last week, they made it to where it was like we knew. I mean, it just didn't take me back. It's just like, like I said, the spaceships were too modern. Like the clothes was too modern. I just didn't feel it. But Redemption, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, 2 good sequels that I like. So,
sorry about that.
No, it's all right. We're pretty much recording live here, so everything matters. Right? Everything can be heard.
Yeah, no, but I definitely I agree with you. Just it goes back to what I was saying. Like you can tell when they made those movies, they made them either together or with the other 2 in mind when they did the first one. So they fit together. It works. But in your defense, though, I mean, George Lucas isn't necessarily known for great writing and storytelling and all that. So, I mean, I still agree with you with as far as the other ones. Yeah. Because that you can't take an iconic character like Darth Vader and then just. But anyway, we're talking about the good ones today.
We're talking about the good ones. And you guys, I was listening to the Woken Up Woke podcast, and they said this thing about the universe works funny, and then I think Ev brought it up how you guys were talking about movies. And then next thing you know, they're showing the movies on TV, right?
Right.
So this past week, everything that we talked about last week was on TV this week. From Friday the 13th, when we were talking about horror movies, to The Phantom Menace. And I'm like, God, there is a reason why I didn't like this movie,
Isn't it funny? Do you ever go back to old movies that you liked or disliked and it just you watch it with different eyes, like a different perspective? You're older, and because I watched Halloween, the first one that was on this week because of the holiday and everything. And I'm convinced that I never watched that movie before because I'm like, wait, what? I don't remember this scene. I don't. When he has a sheet over his head with the glasses.
Oh
like,
God,
what the hell is that?
For you guys who are just jumping in, and this is the first time you're hearing this, we were talking about movies like horror movies last week, and then we're going into sequels. So last week we're talking about horror movies, and just so happens they're showing horror movies because of Halloween weekend. And to piggyback off what you're saying, yes, because they showed Friday the 13th. No, sorry, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. And we were talking about how scary that movie was. So I'm watching the movie. I'm like, this freaked me out back in 1984. What was I smoking back in 8th grade?
It's like, it's so, you look at it now, it's so cheesy.
Oh,
and you're like,
graphics, so cheesy. Yeah. Anyways, back to good movie sequels.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, what do you got?
I'm gonna start off with, and this isn't even a part 2, but there's a lot of movies in this series, and I'm gonna start off with Rocky 4.
Okay.
Me personally, out of all the Rocky movies, I think 4. I'll say 4 is my favorite. I think it's the better one. Now, the first 3 came before, I was born. So number 4 was, the first one I saw. So, in all fairness, I started there, worked my way back, and then they came out with the ones afterwards, which they shouldn't even bothered. But I don't know. I just, Apollo Creed.
Oh man.
Dying and then just like the impossible feat of fighting this Russian who might as well have been a cyborg, and he's training in Siberia or where the hell he was, lifting logs. I mean, great montage music.
Oh
Some of the best montage music ever.
Best workout music. If you guys don't listen to
seriously,
Rocky 4. I agree with you on that one. I do like Rocky 4. I like Rocky 3, and you said you were a little younger when that came out. I like Rocky 3 just because the whole him and Apollo Creed became friends in that era. But then the death of Apollo Creed in 4, man, that just that's, to me, it's like, oh man,
that was crushing.
Have you watched any of the Creeds?
I have not.
Okay.
No, that is next. Thank you for reminding me. That is next on my list. I've meant to, but hadn't got around to it.
You got to watch Creeds because it kind of comes back full circle. This whole from Apollo 4 to Creed. I think it was Creed 2 when it comes back full circle. But you definitely got to watch it. But yeah, Rocky 4, man. Just the whole. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people caught this in the movie when he was training. When Dolph Lundgren, Ivan Drago was training, they took a little needle and they stuck it in his shoulder or something like that, right? And
really,
you have to really watch it. It was the part where like Rocky was in the snow and they're comparing the snow and the gym workouts together. Yeah. Like you see this little syringe and all of a sudden it's in his shoulder, and then now he's like punching the bag like 10 times harder. So you're like, what is he doing there? He works out for Balco, whatever that company was. But I agree with you, man. I love Rocky 4, and just I think a Rocky movie wouldn't be a Rocky movie without a soundtrack,
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, that one scene where Adrian's like, you see him, you see how strong he is? You can't win. Does that driving, that montage, that scene where he's crushed. No, not you, Adrian.
You out of all the people, you have to believe in me. Well, what's funny about the soundtracks for all the Rockies, it's either two people. It's either Survivor, the group, or it's his brother, Frank Stallone, who's singing some of the stuff. So, it's a good movie. I definitely like that movie. And if you guys need to work out, you want to get pumped up, pop in that just look it up on YouTube.
Yeah, Eye of the Tiger. Start there.
Eye of the Tiger. But that snow scene, man, it's like makes me want to work out right now.
Got logs on your back,
yeah. That's another thing that was funny about that movie, because it showed you how you could have all the technology in the world, which Ivan Drago did and the Russians did, and Rocky was just in a barn just doing whatever he can do there, and he still ended up kicking his ass, in the movie. But it
was all about heart.
All about heart. Burning Heart. That was one of the songs. Burning Heart. Burning Heart. I think that's the song.
Look at you.
That's the song. That's the song where Adrian, says you can't win, and he gets off in his Ferrari and drives away, and that's the song playing in the background. So yeah.
Man, classic. So you just bring me back.
Man. Rocky's gonna be on in the next couple of days. Watch. It's gonna be on TV.
I'm texting you, like, bro, it's on.
It's on. All right, I'm gonna go next with I'm gonna leave my favorite for the last. So I have a favorite, and I'm gonna leave that for the last. But I'm gonna go with Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott in 1979 came out with the original Alien, and it was a good movie. Practical effects, everything was perfect. But in 1986, he came out with Aliens,
Yes.
plural, more than one. Sigourney Weaver, she came back and did her Ripley cat or person,
Mhm.
and going from a group of astronauts, I guess they were astronauts in part one.
Right. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. To all of a sudden now you're bringing in, the Marines.
Mhm.
I mean, that movie was classic. And going from one alien to all of a sudden a bunch of aliens.
Yeah, that was the pace definitely changed from one
Yes.
to two.
Yes. And again, going back to part one where you can tell it was just a guy in an alien suit running around. And then all of a sudden, was it James Cameron? I think it was James Cameron that directed that movie. I want to say it was James Cameron.
I believe so. Yeah.
And for them to go that route and to show us this creepy sci-fi, to bring us back, it's like, wow. And yeah, I mean, to me, whenever that show comes on, part one or part two is always my favorite. Part three, part four, that could have been on last week's podcast with the bad movie sequels.
Yeah, definitely.
Part two, yeah, definitely a good movie. Definitely my favorite movie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first with Aliens, completely different sci-fi movie from like Star Wars, right? Yeah. Star Wars was family friendly, had all these kind of like fun looking characters, and I mean, I think Jim Henson had part and all that, you know.
I think he did.
And then now you have this, like, I mean, the first one, it was kind of like a horror film almost, you know. To me, the second was more of like that sci-fi action, and I think the second one, I mean, they're both great, obviously, you know. They have the same elements and the same characters and stuff, but I think the second one was what kind of set the tone for action sci-fi movies after it for a long time, for a good generation. You know, you had it wasn't like Aliens, and it's not gonna hold up.
Yeah, I mean, you go to Alien 1 or the first one, and you have these guys who they have nothing to fight this alien with. You know, It's just like you're throwing forks at them pretty much the whole time, right? And then Aliens, you're bringing the Marines in, and these guys were like badass. My favorite character there was Vasquez. She was the female one there, because she just didn't give a fuck about anything. She was like, she should have did the whole line. I forget who says this line in the movie, but she should have did the line where if it bleeds, we can kill it. I forget where that movie's from.
Is that from the movie or?
No, that's from another movie. But if she said that, it would have been more badass if she said that. If it bleeds, we can kill it. But yeah, that movie, man. I mean, again, from this day on, if that movie pops up, it's like I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, and then I also got to mention, I think his name is was it H.R. Geiger or Giger, that guy who did the artwork, basically created the alien. He drew it up, mocked it up, I guess. And if you Google his artwork, it's this real kind of dark biochemical. It's pretty much the alien background and setting. Like it's pretty cool stuff. I mean, a lot of people get tattoos of his work and stuff.
Wow, he's that good, huh?
Yeah. I'm definitely a fan, but he's out there. He's like a Wolfgang Puck sort of like dark art.
It's definitely something good to look for, when you're watching movies.
Yeah, definitely. I wrote a list too, because like you said last time, it was just way too much. I got bombarded with like, oh, you forgot this, you forgot this.
Yes, I know what you mean.
but I guess sticking with sci-fi and action sci-fi, I'm gonna have to go with the Governator, Arnold. T2, Terminator 2. That's the music for all of you that don't know. I do sound effects. But yeah, T2, Terminator 2. Aliens coming to fuck shit up as usual. Yeah. But I think, I guess it's kind of not fair, because the technology from the first one to the second one, was took leaps and bounds, I guess. So, of course, the first one, classic.
I'll be back.
Great storyline. You had Arnold, was he Mr. Universe or?
Yeah, he was Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia. He did all. He won all
that
those.
stuff.
Yeah.
Conan. The guy was massive, and now to see him as this robot cyborg, whatever the hell he was. But yeah, just in my opinion, I think same thing. Soundtrack part 2, Guns N' Roses. Just the visuals, the special effects, the storyline. Him, I mean, how many one-liners does he have in that movie that we still everyone quotes till today? So I think
hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah. I'll be back.
I agree with you, man. I totally. I mean, again, these guys when they first made their movies, like Terminator 1, everything was practical effects. We did everything. They did everything the way they could do with the budget that they had. And then to bring, I forget the name of that Terminator, T-1000 or whatever he was.
Yeah.
The whole liquefying and I was blown away. And Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't make a good bad guy, right? I mean, he could.
He's too likable.
Yeah, he was too likable. But when they brought him out in Terminator 1, no one really knew who he was. His English wasn't the best. So that's why they gave him those, those one-liners, I'll be back. Then Terminator 2, what was that, 1991? He had a little more movies under his belt. I want to say he did Twins. Did he do Twins?
I think he did Twins. I think he did Predator. Was that before Terminator?
Yeah. I think Predator. Yeah, Predator was probably
before T2. I mean,
before T2. Predator. Yeah. I think he did. So his acting chops got a little bit better when it came to Terminator T2. And then just the whole storyline, man. It's just for us to think about. There might cyborgs running around us, and here he is trying to save the universe, and man.
Just the whole thing of like time travel. I've always been kind of like curious about that. So for them like to tap into that, completely different from Back to the Future. Yeah. They don't care about the space-time continuum. They no, we're going back. We're going to kill this motherfucker.
So you don't these fuck guys shit out now. Exactly. We are going to go back and we're going to kill these guys, and we don't care what timeline comes back at the end of the movie.
Yeah, whatever happens, happens.
I mean, it was a good storyline. I mean, I love that movie, and for them to do all the other sequels after T2, I mean, even this last one they did with that lady from Game of Thrones, the Khaleesi chick. I forget that last one.
Oh, is she in the recent one? Yeah. I stopped after the third one, I believe. I didn't see any. Is Colin Farrell in one of them, or is that Batman? What's his name?
See, Colin Farrell was in one of the Batmans. He played the guy with the card Gambit. He was supposed to be Gambit.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I don't know. I stopped after the third one. I couldn't because I was just like, I don't see you guys. Yeah. So far, I couldn't see anything holding up to the first two. So I just
I mean, I think I see again, like piggybacking off what we were talking about last week. There's so many sequels that you get caught up in which is which. And I don't remember. I remember part 2, but after part 2, I don't know what part 3, part 4, what even part 5 is. And I mean that's a sign right there that it wasn't that great of a movie. If you can't like differentiate 1 from 2 and say, oh, part 2 was great, part 3 was awesome, then it wasn't really that good of a movie. I think that's how I gauge it. If I can't remember it after I watch it, it's the truth.
I didn't like it.
All right, so speaking of Batman, I'm gonna go with The Dark Knight, 2008. Dark Knight trilogy. And the only reason why I love that movie more than I mean, all the other movies was good, but the performance by Heath Ledger as the Joker. I mean, I think if he wasn't in there and did what he did as the Joker, it still would have been a good movie. It still would have been perfect, but just his performance as the Joker and the whole attitude. I mean, we got a Joker that we finally wanted to watch, that I don't give a fuck. I'm going to kill you. You don't care. I mean, he just didn't care. Heath Ledger did not care in that movie, and I loved it. And it gave, Christopher Nolan's Batman a good storyline because of Heath Ledger. Sad couple months later, that same year, Heath Ledger dies because of an overdose. I mean, it's Hollywood. That's how Hollywood always is, pretty much. Yeah, but
unfortunately,
to me, I like that movie just because, the storyline that it gave us and the performance. I mean, they could have just came out with Heath Ledger's movie and just call it, The Joker, and it still would have done good.
Yeah, I completely agree. In fact, I think that would have been great if they would have just done a Joker movie. Yeah. So, around his Joker. Not that what's his face didn't do a good job.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix, yeah. But yeah, no, I definitely agree that his character set the tone for the movie.
Yeah.
It was that dark Joker, because if you read the comics and you knew anything about Batman, you knew how dark of a character the Joker is. He's one of those comic villains that kills people and doesn't give a fuck. But it never translated into any of the movies in the '90s that we watched with Keaton and Clooney and all those guys. So finally it matched. And even Christian Bale's kind of over the over the top dark, Batman. Yeah, it could, it's a little campy, I think, but I liked it. I think it worked.
It worked. Yeah,
And
it worked.
Sorry, excuse me. There's a scene in Dark, I believe it's Dark Knight, where he blows up the building, where he hits the detonator.
Yeah.
Like he presses it first and he hits it and then it blows up. So that scene was improv.
Wow.
There was, he saved that scene. There was a problem with, I guess, the actual detonator or the pyrotechnics. So it didn't go off when he was supposed to. So when he pressed it and, he looked and he's just like, and he just starts like knocking it. And then finally it happened and it did surprise him. He did that. That was a legit, like, oh shit, it blew up. So, I mean, that's the kind of actor you're dealing with who can save
a movie,
thousands and thousands of dollars worth of pyrotechnics and movie equipment and all that stuff.
And again, back to that Batman, just that whole trilogy of Christopher Nolan's Batman, it's the darker Batman series, and a lot of it was practical effects,
Yeah.
They really blew up a building for that scene. It wasn't CGI, and, it was one of those movies where again, I feel if Heath Ledger wasn't in it, it still would have done well in the box office because of it's a Batman series. But I think with him in it, it just went over the top. I mean, I can't think of a Batman movie right now that did any to me that I liked, and the performance of one actor made the big difference in the movie. I mean, Christian Bale's part of there as Batman, it's still good. He's still a good Bruce Wayne, but man, Heath Ledger, his character as the Joker, just wow, it just wowed me. Yeah,
totally agree. Yeah. There aren't too many actors out there that can carry a movie like you said.
Yeah.
I am gonna go ahead. I lost my spot here because this is like all over the place. But here we go. So this sequel, I don't know that it's necessarily better than the first, but as far as two movies go, sequels go, I think they're probably the most cohesive. It feels like it's just really one long movie cut into two, and that's Kill Bill.
Yes.
Kill Bill. Love Tarantino. Huge fan of his.
Yes.
I didn't see the first one when it came out. It was one of those, like, I was kicking myself, didn't see it in the movie theater. And I saw it the day before. We rented it the day before the second one came out. Shout out to Ev from Woken Podcast. We rented it. We watched. He's like, dude, you have to see this movie. Like, there's no way you're not going to like see this movie. So we watched it. We rented it, watched it. And then the next day saw part 2 in the movie theater. So it was super fresh, which was great. It was just like, and I thought it was amazing. I mean, it just, the way he took a lot of like the classic 70s style kung fu flicks, and those type of characters and that type of feel, and just incorporated it. And then having those little breaks of like where he does the backstories and he does, breaks into like a comic at one point, or anime at one point, and then jumps to something else. Like, I thought it was amazing. And I mean, I like them both. I don't know that one is better than the other one. I think they're just a great piece of work.
I mean, it's funny because I shoot myself all the time, because when that movie came out, when Kill Bill 2 came out, it was the same time as Scary Movie 2. And the theater that we were watching at it was one of those old school small theaters. So they only had 2 movies. One was Kill Bill 2 and the other one was Scary Movie 2. And I said, you know what? Let's go watch Scary Movie 2, because, that's stupid funny right now. And Kill Bill's too serious for me. I walked out of Scary Movie 2 like, what the fuck was I thinking of? Why the hell did I watch this? And then, it's like later on when I finally watched Kill Bill 2, I was like, man, I wasted hours of watching Scary Movie 2, wasted time that I can never get back over this cool movie. I love all that Kill Bill series, the whole Kill Bill series. What is there? There's only 2 of them, right?
There's only 2 of them.
Okay.
That
like,
I know.
Like you said, it was like one long movie, so it's kind of confusing. Like I could have sworn there was a third one, but yeah, just the whole, again, practical effects Quentin Tarantino does, man.
Yeah. Someone told me once, and I never tried it, but they said you can watch part 2 before watching part 1 and it would still work. Now, I don't see how that would work, but I'm interested to find out. But then I was also told if you listen to Pink Floyd's The Wall while watching Wizard of Oz, it lines up at some point, but I think you got to take acid for that. So who knows where I get this information from? The internet's a crazy place.
Stop listening to Yahoo. What I loved about that movie, in the scene where she's fighting the crazy 88, right?
Yes.
They all come into the club. You know it's going to be the goriest scene ever.
Yes.
But Quentin Tarantino cuts that whole scene to black and white. Just because, one, he knew it's going to be a crazy bloodbath.
Right.
And 2, he wanted to keep people from not getting sick at the movie theaters.
Yeah.
But the fact that he did that, I'm just like, wow, who the hell thinks of this, right?
Yeah. And then you do get to see the aftermath at some point when it cuts back to color. So you don't miss out on the...
They're all dead. They're all dead by the time the color scenes come up. But the fact that he even decided to do that was like, that's how talented Quentin Tarantino is. And that's, to me, when he did that in that movie, I was,
one of my favorite action sequences. I mean, just the whole, that silhouette fight where they're behind that screen, so you only see their shadows, the silhouettes fighting, and then like you say, how the hell are you getting out of this? It's 88 freaking assassins
88.
plus
88.
a few other sprinkled ones in there, and I mean, classic. For me, he really, really touched on what people loved about those kung fu flicks in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I mean, even the master, when she's over there training with the master and they show, what she did and what she had to sacrifice for, and it's like, I'm getting confused between the first and the second one. So if I'm throwing off the first one, I apologize. But
no worries.
But man, that's like an easy costume to be. Also, you just a black and white suit and throw on a mask, shave your head.
You know what I mean? Sure, we could. Hey, now we know what we're gonna be next year. We just got to get 86 more guys to join us.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be like, well, how much are you paying me?
I think we'll be good. We'll just head down to the Castro. We'll be all right.
Crazy 88, I'm down. After the COVID. Oh man. Man, Quentin Tarantino, I mean, he's one of those guys where his movies, any movie you watch with him, it'll never disappoint you. Never disappoint you. Guarantee some kind of bloodbath, Pulp Fiction and all that stuff. But the fact how he did it with this scene in Kill Bill, I loved. Yeah. So that whole whistle. I'm not gonna do the whistle because I can't, but that whole whistle, it's like, that's a ringtone. I have that for someone as a ringtone. I forget whose ringtone that is. Yeah. I'm going to take you back a little bit. This is a movie that a lot of people don't know about, but in 1991 they came out with a movie called El Mariachi. And,
nice.
And it's about these 3 mariachi players who carries guns and stuff in their guitar cases, right? And in 1995, Antonio Banderas came out with Desperado. So if you guys never seen the movie Desperado, Cheech Marin is in the movie. Selma Hayek is in that movie.
Yes.
It's one of those sleepers sequels that you never even really knew was a sequel because they're not saying like El Mariachi 2 or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't clear that it was a part 2 to
Antonio Banderas plays a mariachi band member who has to save Selma Hayek from one of the drug lords. And just the whole scene, whether they were in Mexico actually shooting the scene or somewhere in, Texas, that movie to me, it's like, wow. It's, again, special effects, all the stuff that was in there. It was a good movie. And again, a lot of people probably don't even know that it was a sequel.
Yeah. Well, wait, what was it again? So El Mariachi is the sequel?
El Mariachi is the original. They did in 95,
right.
And then in 92, I'm sorry, and in 95, Desperado came out. And that was a sequel.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that was Robert Rodriguez, correct?
The director.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the man.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the scenes, the killing scenes, and the fact that you see this guy walking around with a guitar case, and you think he has a guitar in there, but really he has like 5,000 guns and 10,000 grenades.
Yeah, and then they have Antonio Banderas, who's just like this real suave, like kind of chill, debonair dude, and then he's like a super killer with his with his guitar,
with his long. He had long hair back then, so a lot of the ladies was like, "Oh, Antonio." But yeah, that to me.
Quentin was in that movie, wasn't he?
Who was?
I think he has Quentin Tarantino has a cameo in that.
You know what he does? He goes into the restaurant. I think he was I want to say he was the go-to person when he got to Mexico, and was saying, "Hey, if you help her, I'll do this for you," kind of thing. Quentin Tarantino's. I think that I want to say he's in a lot of movies. Well, either he directed or he had something to deal with. Right?
Yeah, definitely. He does. He loves doing the cameos for sure. Yeah. He does that Scorsese thing where he's always got and I think sometimes it's because he feels like it's just a role that he has to do because it needs it done a certain way. I know that was the case in Django when he played that slave transporter or whatever that guy was that he played, that he just felt like I need to do this.
Yeah. He even in that one movie. What's that one movie where they were the bank robber movie where they everything went bad? I forgot. They had like Mr. Pink, Mr. Red.
Oh, Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Even that
Classic.
Was that his movie? Did he direct that movie?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that one? And that might be one of his first.
Yeah.
But don't hold me to that.
No, it probably was. But it's, again, anything Quentin Tarantino does is always gory.
Yeah.
From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn. If you've seen that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin
Tarantino. He that's his. Oh, definitely. And he's a big fan of dialogue. And what I like, if you listen to his interviews, the way he speaks, he's just like 100 miles an hour, and he's very like he has a way of articulating what it is he wants to say. But what I've noticed is if you watch his movies, he has a knack of getting the characters to do the dialogue the same way he speaks in some cases. There's a bunch, especially one. The one that comes to mind is what was that? The most recent, the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah. The remake.
Yeah. Movies like that are real dialogue heavy. They have a tendency to sound like him. Like I'll close my eyes and be like, man, he sounds just like Tarantino.
That's how they want to learn from the best. It's one of those good things.
Yeah, no, that's a good one also.
Yeah, I mean,
I like Mariachi.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, Desperado, 1995, and again, no CGI or anything like that. A lot of it's all practical effects, which makes the movie a little bit better for me.
Yeah, and it has like that Western feel, but modernized.
Yes, definitely. I love old Western type movies.
For sure. I'm gonna lighten up the mood.
Yes, please. No more bloodbaths.
Yeah. This movie, I mean, it's definitely silly, but I'm a fan of silly movies. I don't know. And definitely this guy, he knows how to do them right. But I'm going to go with Ace Ventura 2. Again, I don't necessarily know that it's better than the first.
Yeah.
That's a tall order, but it did not, in my opinion, it didn't let me down. I thought it was funny. Tommy Davidson, you can't go wrong with him.
No.
I think I said this in the Woke podcast. He's one of the few people that as soon as I see him, before he even open his mouth, I'm laughing because I know it's going to be something stupid. And there was just so much going on. The whole coming out of the rhino's ass scene while the family is like taking pictures, and just the whole shikaka and thing where they're like spitting on each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's very junior high-ish type humor, but I don't know.
It was. I like the first one. And the first one was, to me, where they came out with a part 2, which you probably knew everyone's going to come out with a part 2. I sat there I think I watched it twice, and it's one of those stupid comedies where if you're not going into a movie or watching this movie knowing that this is the kind of comedy it's going to be, you're not going to like it,
Right.
It's kind of like what we talked about last week with the Dumb and Dumber. If you're not going to go in there thinking, okay, what is this movie going to be funny? I mean, for God's sakes, it's Jim Carrey. You already know he's going to do something where he's going to either improvise, he's going to do something out of character. And yeah, I mean, I liked the movie. It was a good movie. I mean, it was one of those movies, again, it's one of those movies where I probably won't watch anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the thing I love about Jim Carrey, and it's he takes, like, he can do that real slapstick, just ridiculous, over the top humor, but not just anybody can do it.
Yes.
You know, there's little nuances to the things he does that it's smarter than like the average, say, regular dumb comedy, which is also why I like Zoolander, although the second one I didn't really care for. But it kind of falls along those lines where it's inside of this over the top ridiculous movie and comedy, there's really smart, good comedy, but you just got to be able to sit through the rest of the crap in order to to find it, to see it.
How do you feel about him leaving his whole comical role and, you know, try to do something a little more serious? Like, I think The Truman Show was one of the movies where he decided to go off the I'm not funny, I'm serious actor kind of guy.
I'm not mad at it. You know, as someone who likes to create, I'm never mad at people that want to try something different. Do I think it worked? Sometimes I think Truman Show is one of his best movies.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite movies. I think he nailed it, but he's still, the nature of the character he played was still sort of lighthearted and silly, and so it kind of fit within his realm. But then he had like the that movie 23, where he played like he played the bad guy. I just remember that, and I didn't buy it. It was a little too weird. And you know, Liar Liar was, again, kind of a serious role, but still comedy. So I don't know. I don't mind it, but I just don't. I don't see it in some of the roles he's played. Some of the serious roles.
I mean, I think he should stick to what made him famous, and you know, that whole slapstick comedy that he does is what made him famous. And you know, does he still have it? He's like, what, 60 right now? So can he still pull it off? If there was an Ace Ventura 3, would you watch it?
I probably would.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I probably would. I watched the most recent Dumb and Dumber, Dumb and Dumber 2, right? TO, whatever. Yeah. I had to watch it just because. I mean, at that point,
how did you get her pregnant? You got her pregnant. Yeah.
It's funny. But yeah, Ace Ventura 2. That's a classic.
It's a good one. It's a good one. I mean, again, I'm not gonna say anything. I like that movie. The movie was good. To me, Jim Carrey is just one of those guys where it's like, you could, if you don't like him, then don't watch his movies, because you know there's only certain things that you can take from watching his movies, and sometimes he just gets a little too much. Cable Guy was a good movie, but it was just kind of annoying.
And you know what's funny is Cable Guy, I feel, is like one of his most slept on movies. I think that's one of his best performances, which is funny.
It is, but it's one of those movies where if you watch more than once, you're gonna kind of get annoyed, because just the way he's just, to me, he's just one of these guys, and that character that he plays is just, if that was a real situation and this guy just keeps knocking on your door, it's like, dude, go away.
And I mean, and that's why I like it. See how he really annoyed you. He pissed you off. You're so much so that you're like, I can't watch this again. I think that's great acting.
I'm going to go to our Instagram page, and Casey King, also from last week, agreed with Terminator 2, Empire Strikes Back. Then he says Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. I agree with that. That's a little too modern for me. I was trying to stick on my list. I think 2008, 2004 on my list was the most, the earliest or the most soonest I have sequels. I agree with him on that. But again, Captain America, I mean, anything Marvel. I mean, anything Marvel is good.
I totally agree, because the most recent one I have here is another Marvel one, and it's Iron Man, and that's all of them. But you have the feeling. I mean, that Marvel took the time when they announced the whole MCU universe, that they had this grand scheme, plan of all these movies laid out and how it was going to be, and it was exactly how, for the most part, how the comic was, the story of the Civil War. So he's definitely not wrong. But it's the newer stuff I haven't watched multiple times enough to really give a good Iron Man was probably the only one that I've seen.
Part 2?
All of them. I mean, I don't.
Part 2 was good. I mean, part 2 was good because of what's that guy's name? You guys talked about him. You saw him in the bar. He's wearing shirtless. God, what I forget his name now. New Yorker.
Yeah,
you know what? Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke. There we go. Mickey Rourke. Yes.
Mickey Rourke. I mean, yeah, you know, to him play Whiplash in Iron Man 2, it's like that. Yeah. I totally respected Mickey Rourke to go out of his character.
What do you think about them changing the character? What's his name? Like they dumped Terrence Howard and they brought on who replaced them?
I know who you're talking about. I forget what his real name is.
Don Cheadle.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of sucks, because if you guys know the backstory of that, Terrence Howard is the one that brought, you know, Robert Downey Jr. to the producers, because Terrence Howard already got the role. Yeah, he already got the role, right? Oh, wow. And then they were still trying to figure out who they wanted to play as Tony Stark. And he says, hey, get my guy Robert Downey Jr. At that time, Robert Downey Jr. was like, dude, he's a druggie, you know, can we really rely on him? And after the success of Iron Man 2, Terrence Howard was going to get a bigger role. He was going to get more talking time. And Robert Downey Jr. was like, no, I don't want him to play, you know, War Machine. You know, we got to get someone else to do it.
So it was his decision. Oh, well, I always thought it was like a you know, maybe he had something else to do. I don't know why you would want to turn down Iron Man 2.
It's funny because if you hear Terrence Howard's version, he's going to say, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. fucked me over. I got him the gig, and he's the one that didn't want me. But if you hear the Marvel's reason, reason is War Machine wasn't bigger than Iron Man, like size-wise, right? And Terrence Howard towered over Robert Downey Jr. He's a lot taller than him. And if you put him in this suit now, he wasn't going to look right in that suit. Yeah. So that's Marvel's reasoning, but I'm kind of going to believe what Terrence Howard's saying, you know, when it comes to that.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, that's like when they changed Aunt Viv in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, that's another one. That could be for another podcast. Do you think we weren't going to know that this Aunt Viv is a little light-skinned?
Yeah. But at least they poked fun at it, you know, and they took their jokes, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, there was this one. Speaking of the Fresh Prince, there was one when they first brought the new Aunt Viv in, and they put her and Hillary next to each other. You know, Will Smith's character says, "Now we know where you get the good looks from." You know, she did one of those things. It's like, all right, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's you know. Iron Man 2, I would say all Marvel movies, man, they're just all good. You know, I can't. It's kind
of hard to argue that they're not.
I can't say one's better than the other, and they're all good. I'm going to take you back to 1986, and I'm going to take you because of this song right here. I'm going to play a snippet of it. Quick snippet. Don't know if you guys know that song, but it's Karate Kid Part 2. Peter Cetera's Glory of Love takes us to Japan. Well, it's supposed to be Japan, but you know, we found out later we were like in Hawaii. Karate Kid Part 2, man. I mean, Part 1 was good. Don't get me wrong. Part 2, just the whole, now you're in a different world, you're in a different country, and you're fighting these guys who are supposed to be, you know, who's martial artists a lot longer than you are, and you're gonna go there and you're gonna kick their ass with the whole little baby thimble or the drum, the little drum thing.
So wait, you like Part 2 better than the first one?
Yeah, I like Part 2 better than the first one. I mean, because again, it brought us someplace else. You know, it brought us to a different country. It brought us, well, supposedly a different country, different land, and it kind of brought, you know, Miyagi and Daniel together. You know, it's like he never had a father figure. Miyagi never had a son, so it kind of brought them together with this, you know, after Miyagi's dad dies, and you know, Daniel's son's finding out more about Miyagi, because in the whole Part 1 he was so secretive, like he's not going to tell you anything, right? Then in Part 2 you find out he has a dad. This is his dojo. He had a love interest, so it's kind of like, wow, you know, this to me, it's you know, that's something I think I need to go back and watch, because again, that's, you know, how we're talking about, you go back to movies later on with different eyes, because I think for me as a kid, the first one was so iconic and blown up so huge that I'll be honest with you, I barely remember the second one. I mean, I remember the little, you know, things, and then now that you're talking about it, you're jogging my memory. But
I think I was just kind of caught up with the hype of the first one.
Yeah.
As a kid, I mean, you're talking, I'm 6 years old, so
86 is when it came out.
yeah. So that's interesting. That's something I'd have to go back and watch again, because as it stands right now, I like the first one better, but who knows? I might change my mind.
After part 2, there was nothing else that I liked, and then when they brought in the Hilary Swank one, where the next, and even the reboot that they did with Jaden Smith, yeah. I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't Miyagi. You know what I mean? Jackie Chan did his role as, I forget what his name was in that movie, but he did good in this role, but it wasn't Miyagi. So it was one of those movies where it's like,
Yeah, my last episode of Man of Few Words podcast, I talk about Cobra Kai, the reboot series continuation, and I talked a little bit about the original ones, and I basically said the same thing you did. I mean, after the first two, I just they lost me. It didn't do anything for the original, didn't make it wasn't better than it didn't even, I don't think, even stood up to it, so I've passed on it. But I don't know if you've gotten a chance to watch yet, but the series Cobra Kai on Netflix, I would check it out. I like it. I think it's good. I don't want to, no spoiler alerts here. I did that enough on that episode, so go back and watch that if you've already listen to that if you've already watched.
I have 2 kids that already spoiled everything for me, so it's okay.
What was that? Your boys?
I have 2 boys that already spoiled everything for me, so it's okay. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I love how, now with the streaming services that we have, Netflix, Amazon, all these, Hulu, that they're bringing back some, nostalgic characters that, we grew up watching, and now they're either continuing the story and, finding out what happened to them like 20 years later, which I'm totally cool with. Again, I haven't sat down and watched it. I'm a little biased. And, when Rex back in the hotel told me, hey, have you watched the new Battlestar Galactica? I said, no way, I'm not going to fucking watch that, because I was so into the old school Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm never going to fucking watch this movie. What are you talking about? It's a joke. I ended up watching it, ended up liking it. I'm like, wow, what took me so long to watch this, So it's one of those things where, yes, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to get there and watch it. It's just, I still, still feeling the whole old school Danielson kind of thing.
Yeah. And believe me, I understand. I was the same way. When it first came out, it was on YouTube Red.
Yes.
And I think they were just trying to feel it out, honestly. And I watched the first episode and I was like, all right, I was watching it expecting to hate it.
Yeah.
I was just, the only thing that had me even curious was the fact that I saw they had most of the original cast, obviously, besides Pat Morita, rest in peace. So I was like, well, let me check it out, and I surprisingly liked it, but it was at a time when I was watching something else, another series, and I didn't have the time to put into it, and then forgot about it, and then it came out on Netflix, and I was like, let me watch it again, and I think it's done well. You'll be pleasantly surprised, I think.
Well, the good thing about it, it's only 30 minutes long an episode, so that's the good thing. I can actually sit there and watch, sit here for an hour and get two episodes out of the way. So I'm definitely going to get on it. I'm definitely going to watch it. It sucks because, again, you brought up that it first came out on YouTube Red, and that kind of that's the reason why, now that I remember, is the reason why I didn't want to watch it, is because you're going to bring back an old movie and make me pay extra to go watch it when no one knows what it's about yet. I mean, what are we talking about, kind of thing. And then later on they brought it over to Netflix, which I'm glad they did, because everybody has Netflix, everybody has Hulu, kind of thing. So I'm definitely going to sit there. You sold me on watching it, so I'm going to go watch it.
Thanks. And then maybe that'd be something else we come back to.
Yes, we can talk about Cobra Kai. Fuck Johnny.
Put him in a body bag.
That's, that was a cheesy part about Karate Kid Part 1, is that last episodes where they were doing the whole fight scene. Some of the fights were perfect, but then when you put, Daniel LaRusso in there, you can tell how staged and choreographed all those fight scenes were. I mean, that last kick where he kicks Johnny, he hesitates before he can kick him. It's like, that's not how a real tournament is,
And let's forget about the fact that it was an illegal kick to the face that won the tournament.
That won the fight, yeah, exactly.
I was like, wait a minute, that's not allowed. Everybody's just cheering.
Oh, yay, you did it.
He did it.
And then that kick never did anything else after that. He brings us back to part 2. He tries to do that same kick. That's the first thing he does when he's fighting this Japanese guy, and the guy blocks him.
I'm glad they did that, because you know how many kids I saw get beat up thinking the crane kick was going to save their life against a bully. And I think they got even more beat up because the fact that they even tried doing the crane kick.
See, what people don't realize, when your arms are up, you're watching on YouTube, my arms are up right now. Your arms are up. You have one leg up. You're balancing on one leg. You leave your whole trunk open now. So if I wanted to just come up to you and just punch you in the stomach or the chest, what the hell's a crane kick going to do?
Or leg sweep you.
Yeah. I can just come over, push you over, and push your shoulder, and you're on one leg. You're definitely going to lose your balance. I don't care if you're Miyagi or Daniel. You can't balance on one leg that great.
Don't try it at home, kids. Don't. You're going to get hurt.
Please don't try it.
You're going to twist your ankle.
Yes. Yes.
You're gonna land wrong, pop your knee. Just nah.
Whose turn was it? Was it my turn or your turn? I forgot where we're going.
What was the last thing we spoke about?
Oh, you Ace Ventura.
Okay, damn.
How far did we get with Ace Ventura? I'm gonna bring back again. I'm old school. I love my old school movies. I'm gonna go back to 1982 and 1985. 1982 was Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior.
Oh wow.
And then the sequel after that was Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome with Tina Turner. I mean, this put what's his name? God, I forget his name now.
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson put these 2 episodes or series put him on the map. And just the fact that Road Warrior is one of those classic movies where, not like Fast and the Furious, they don't have gas, but their cars are still running. These guys are all fighting for gas. I mean, everything that they're fighting for is like, we're going to, blow them up, but don't blow them up yet because we want to take the gas out of their car.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, Mad Max, all the Mad Max is the original Fast and Furious. I mean, you had all these souped up cars that were just like, if you saw that car on the road right now, you're like, signal to your left, let me get out of your way kind of thing, I'm not going to. And the fact that, in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Tina Turner, I mean, like, just the way she was, iconic role.
So I think some of the sickest wardrobe and set design in any movie.
Yes.
Because it really kind of, to me, is a more realistic depiction of what it would look like after the apocalypse.
Oh my God, it's exactly what it's going to look like.
It's not. I don't think it's going to be like The Walking Dead. I think it's going to be more like Mad Max. Everything's going to be a desert. People, the Book of Eli-ish kind of feel.
How do you feel about the new one that they did with that the newest version of Mad Max or Road War, whatever it's called now?
I liked it. I was entertained by it.
Yeah.
I thought it was done well. I'll be honest, haven't really watched the originals that much to say whether or not I hate it as far as it does justice to the original, but as a standalone movie, I liked it. I think it's cool.
What I liked about it is they kept to the same storyline, same exact storyline. You're fighting for gas. You're fighting, whoever has the biggest vehicle is the one that's going to win. And they didn't change anything. They didn't add like a flying car or everything was exactly what it was supposed to be in the original. The guns were still the same. The characters were still the same. And it's kind of one of those movies where it's like 20 years later, they come out with a new one. And I'm glad they kept it the way the original was. Because again, if they changed it a little bit, like, now there's a machine gun or, it would have killed the movie a little bit, but I liked it. It was a good sequel, and I'm glad they kept it original.
Yeah, you have to be real careful when you're going to take a movie that, for one, has been around as long as that one has been, and is considered a cult classic, and people just love so much. You got to be delicate with what you do. You can't just take it and change it completely and do all this. You got to stay true to the original movie and try to put your spin or whatever on it, which, I thought they did well.
They did. I liked it a lot. So it's good.
All right. This one, actually, I don't know. I don't know if I like this movie better than the first, but this is a fun family movie. Ghostbusters 2. Now Ghostbusters, I mean, who doesn't like Ghostbusters, right? First one, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Sigourney Weaver again, floating in the air.
Yeah.
You got the comedy trio, or excuse me, quad of like. But what I liked about the second one was kind of what we were talking about, what happens always with San Francisco, how all these action movies now, they're blowing up the Golden Gate Bridge and everything. And that was kind of our movie where they just destroyed New York City.
They did, yeah.
The Statue of Liberty comes to life, starts walking down the street and all that stuff. And then, Bobby Brown did the soundtrack, has like the smash hit song.
That was his first movie as the bellman in that movie.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good movie. It may not, for some, it may not, be better than the first, but yeah, I was enjoyable.
No, I mean, it was a good movie. I mean, like the first one, like you said, it's like when they came out with a part 2, I'm like, how are they going to beat the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, right? Mm-hmm. And then just that scene where like, let's get this goo and let's put it on the base of the Statue of Liberty and let's make her walk over there. It's like, it kind of made me wonder, because again, they did that because New Yorkers lost their hope. Is that what the whole premise of the movie was, right?
Yeah. I believe it was like, it might have even been like around the holiday season. And New Yorkers just lost their hope. The city was in shambles, and
they needed something iconic to bring their hope back, so they bring the Statue of Liberty over there, right?
Yeah.
No, I like that. It was a good movie. I mean, anything Ghostbusters I like. I mean, except for the new one they just did with the females. Nothing against female movies. It's just that movie just didn't do it for me.
It was not.
Yeah.
It was not. It didn't do it justice, and it wasn't that funny as people said. But yeah, it had nothing to do with the cast. In fact, I was excited about the cast because
so was I.
What's her name from both the girls from Saturday Night Live, McKinnon and the other one. They're hilarious. So I was like, all right, let's check it out. And I was really disappointed.
Again, it wasn't a female, because it's a female movie. Ocean's 8 was a good movie, and that was a female movie. But just this one, trying to bring back the Ghostbusters and it just didn't seem right, and you didn't have any of the original cast. I think did Dan Aykroyd make a cameo?
You know what? I don't know.
Yeah, see,
I don't know that I made it through the movie.
I didn't watch the movie because it's, you're going to use Ghostbusters. You got to bring somebody back, at least Bill Murray and, Dan Aykroyd. But they didn't do that. So I just decided, I don't know. That's something we can talk about in a different podcast too, like good and bad reboots that were made. Stay tuned for that one. But I'm going to go, and just in case you bring it up, I want to bring it up first because I said I'm going to save my best for last. So just I
have a feeling this was the one I was actually going to start with.
Okay.
But when you said what you said, I was like, I think that's this movie, so I'll wait.
I appreciate that. My favorite movie of all time, and I love the 2 sequels that came out after it, was Back to the Future.
Okay. Good. That wasn't it.
Okay, good. Well, I still appreciate that you had the courtesy of waiting for you. Back to the Future, again, that kind of movie where the first one was good, and then at the end of the first one, you knew there was going to be a second one. So how's the second one going to be better than the first one? And then how's the second one going to be better than the third one? But that was one long movie. If you put all the movies together, and I did this 3 times, and I got a lot of people in my household that's annoyed with me that I did this 3 times, but I watched all 3 movies back to back. And
recently
because it was on TV, but there was a couple times where I had to find a DVD player and pop the DVD in and watch it back to back because I didn't want to wait for the commercials. But if you watch it back to back, all 3 movies, it's probably the best movie made where everything there just makes sense. And just the whole time travel, the whole, messing up the space-time continuum, all that stuff. It's one of those things, like we tell ourselves, if you had a time machine, like one of the questions I asked in an older podcast, if you had a time machine, if you had the DeLorean, what would you do, or where would you go to either make your life better? Would you do what Marty McFly did, where he decides he's going to take an almanac and make some bets and become a millionaire later on?
That's what I'm doing.
Or would you use it for something where, like, maybe I'll tell myself, hey, don't fuck up in high school. Don't cut these classes.
Yeah.
You know, would you do that? I mean, that's what I loved about that movie. It gave you that, imagination of, where you want to be. It brought us to the present, which is the present 1985. It brought us to the future, which is the flying cars, which we still don't have in 2020. Then it brought you back to the Western, So it's kind of like those everything in that movie from, Marty McFly to Doc Brown to the DeLorean, to me is nostalgia. And, it's one of those movies where between Rudy, the movie Rudy, and Back to the Future, if it's on TV, it's definitely going to be played that night.
Yeah, no, I agree. I add Tombstone to that list.
Tombstone,
FYI.
yeah. Tombstone. Anything cowboy, I love. Anything cowboy, yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned Tombstone. Someone asked me a while back, just like last week, hey, is it true that Wyatt Earp is buried in Coma? And I said, yes, he's buried in the Eternal Peace Jewish Cemetery in Coma. I was like, you can't miss him. He's like, as soon as you drive up, he's like 2 to the right, and there he is.
Yeah, I just found that out recently because, again, it was on TV, and if I'm flicking through and it's there, I stop and I watch. I love that movie.
Oh my god!
My wife was watching it with me, and then she's full of all those tidbits, and she's like, "Oh yeah, did you know he's buried?" I'm like, "What?"
You got to go.
I'm like, now I want to go find it, and take a picture.
Go pay respects. I paid my respects to him a few times, so he's, he probably would say like, "Why is this Chinaman standing over my tombstone?" Because that's what they said back then. Not being racist, but that's what they said back in the cowboy days. But yeah, no.
Who knows what he would have said about me? That's the biggest Mexican I've ever seen.
Is that an Indian?
What's a Puerto Rican? Anyway,
Rican, yes.
Okay, so good. All right, we didn't have the same movie.
No.
So the movie that I was going to start with, and then I figured let me hold off, is The Godfather 2.
Yes, it's on my list.
Godfather 2, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. Obviously they're both amazing movies. And I mean, we spoke about the third one last week as far as bad sequels, but these two, I mean, it's just amazing acting and just great direction. But what I like about the second one, I really love Robert De Niro's depiction of a young Vito Corleone.
Yes.
Just the way he played that role, the way, you just felt you were in that time, and I think the pacing of it, there was more action. I feel like I don't know. I think it just moved a little fast. It didn't seem as long as it was, or as the first one, because I have a short attention span.
Yeah.
So anything after more than 2 hours, I really have to go into it, focus with energy, saying, all right, I want to pay attention. I need to and it doesn't feel like watching that movie or you're watching a long movie. In my opinion. So definitely think, and I do think, in my opinion, part 2 is better than the first one.
I agree with you on that. And what I love about part 2 is, we talked about a little bit of it last week, was how they brought everything full circle. They brought everything, like a lot of people were like, okay, you're going to kill Marlon Brando off. How is this movie going to keep going without Marlon Brando? And
right.
Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, the way, and then Robert Kahn? Is that
James Caan?
James Caan. Yeah. James Caan, the way he just did everything, and not James Caan, but just the whole group whatsoever. All of those guys, the way they did everything, it's just like, wow. They brought the movie again full circle, and I agree with you on how they brought us to that time period. They made us feel like we're here. Were they in New York? Was that New York that they were in? I believe it was New York, right?
Yeah, it was New York.
Yeah, so they made us feel like we were in old school New York, and just like if you ever wondered what it was like during the Al Capone days and all that stuff, watch The Godfather. It'll definitely bring you back to that era, and I totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And then I mean, also you had sorry, excuse me. Just just that overall feel of like you're inside the mob and the mafia and like what goes on. Because prior to that, all you saw was just news clippings and mobsters dead on the cover of the newspaper. So this kind of like put you right in there,
Yeah,
right in
yeah.
the heart of what was going on in mafia. At least you felt like it anyway. It seemed authentic. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it's one of those movies where you can't talk about a movie sequel without talking about The Godfather 2. I mean, it's like you have to bring that up all the time. So it's one of those movies where, yes, I like the movie. Yes, I enjoy the movie. If it came on again right now, I would definitely watch it. I would have to watch it in cable because I can't stand like when TNT or TBS shows a movie. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, what the frick are you looking at? But
Yeah, when they do Lord of the Rings on TV with
Yeah.
commercials, it's like, come on, bro. I don't have a week to watch this.
Stop it already. Yes. I'm gonna go with Sam Raimi's 2004 Spider-Man 2.
Ooh.
And the reason why I like that movie is because Alfred Molina played Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock, and his
That's right.
the way he acted in that movie was to die for. I mean, it's like Tobey Maguire, yeah, Spider-Man was good. Yeah, kind of like, this is before emo Spider-Man and part 3. But just, Alfred Molina's role as Doc Ock and the way he played that character. I mean, he played that character to the T. He made you believe, the comic book that I was reading, 10, 15 years ago when I'm reading Doc Ock, he brought that character to life. And I'm like, wow, this is what it would have been like if Doc Ock was really around. And again, perfect description of what, Doc Ock did. And I kind of wished Sony didn't kind of mess things up, or Sony Pictures didn't mess things up with the whole Spider-Man franchise because they just didn't know where they were going. And I'm kind of glad Marvel got the whole Spider-Man thing going on right now.
Very happy. Very happy.
And I hope Sony and Marvel, if you guys are listening, or if you hear this, I hope you guys can keep a good relationship, because whatever you're doing now, it's working. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, no, it's true. I totally agree. I came up like reading Spider-Man, X-Men. Those are my two favorite, and I was always disappointed with how they did those movies, and it was like, yes, I just wish that they could have, Sony and Marvel could have kind of came to some sort of agreement earlier, so we could have incorporated Spider-Man earlier in the MCU universe.
MCU, yeah.
Because it was kind of a little disappointing. I just recently watched both of them. Because once I was done with Avengers, I was just like, I don't think I can go on to the next phase that they're planning. But yeah, definitely agree with that one.
I mean, it's just one of those movies where, again, I'm usually like, when you say you have this short attention span when it comes to movies, I'm the same way. If the first 20, 30 minutes, you don't catch my attention, I'm not going to watch it, or I'm going to fade away and kind of drift away. And I just wasted $10 in a movie theater. But this movie just had me like, what's going to happen now? Oh God, you got these little tentacles hanging out in his arms, and just the way it worked, everything flowed perfect together. And, kind of wish, they brought him back in the future. Like MCU, if you're listening, bring him back.
Yeah. And I agree too. He played that part great, because I can't recall any time before that where he really played like a bad guy like that.
Yeah. I liked him in Frida Kahlo too. So if you watched him in Frida Kahlo, he was definitely perfect in Frida Kahlo.
I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
Alrighty. My next one. This one, I don't know. This is a tough one because they're all good.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say the whole franchise, and that's the Toy Story franchise.
Nice.
The first one is classic. The second one, you're not disappointed how they picked up where they were left off and did justice. The third one's a tearjerker.
Oh, God.
I mean, the fourth one breaks your heart. I mean, it's I don't know. I like them all. I don't have a favorite. I seriously can watch them all and feel the same about all of them.
It's almost hard to pick a favorite. I mean, it's like everything tells its own story, from the first one to Buzz being, Buzz Lightyear out of the box, Buzz Lightyear, to finally realizing he was a toy. I mean, it's one of those movies where it's like you cannot pick one that's your favorite. You know, they're all.
Yeah.
And the third one, man, when he just did not want to get rid of his toys. But I'm glad that he picked I forget the little girl's name. I'm glad that he picked her because, you know, he was being really picky on who got his toys. I'm glad he was, because if it wasn't for him being picky, probably would have went with like that kid next door who was just tearing him apart, breaking him up.
That's sicko. Yeah. And you know, and this is, I don't know, you know, like Disney and I'm assuming Pixar, they like to do all these little kind of little Easter eggs in there. Yeah. But someone told me that the Garbage Man in part 2 was the kid from the first one. He has the same T-shirt on, and I haven't bothered to look to see you know.
It's one of those blink and you miss it, and if you go on YouTube and you watch or you Google or you YouTube, like, you know, Easter eggs and all that stuff, or Pixar Easter eggs, that's one of the top Easter eggs that actually comes up was he, you know, the kid next door, because he's wearing the same shirt. It's that I want to say it was like a Punisher shirt or a shirt that had like a skeleton in front.
Yeah.
So he's wearing the same shirt as that little kid was, but it kind of makes you wonder, like, did this kid grow up that fast that all of a sudden he's a garbage man? Because
well, that was the thing with the Toy Story movies, is the time there was a nice, I think there was only a 2-year gap maybe between the first two. I could be wrong, but then there was like a pretty decent gap between the other ones after that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm into theories. You know, I told you last week about, you know, Neo and John Wick being the same character. So hell, if that's, you know, anything can be true, especially like in Pixar, man. Pixar and Disney, they like to, it's that same universe. They like to all be in the same universe. So
no, but definitely Toy Story is up there. Another one of those movies. If any of them are on, I can watch it.
Yeah.
There's one I watched. I don't know if you watch The Big Bang Theory at all, but there's a scene where the character Penny is kind of busting Leonard's balls, the other character, about him crying during Toy Story 3. Yeah. He goes and he's like, "They were in a furnace." It's
like, gonna die.
It just does such a good job of anyone who had toys as a kid that loved their toys. I mean, these movies really do have a way of, like, you know, tugging at the heartstring.
Shout out to Pixar too, man. Pixar to come out with movies like this. I mean, not just Toy Story, but all the movies that they have across the board. Shout out to Pixar for putting out good movies. The writers are really, all the movies are well written. It's one of those where you don't even have to be a child to watch these movies. We're grown adults and we're like talking about Toy Story. You know, shout out to Pixar and the writers for doing that, man. Yes, Pixar, I want to come over and visit. So that's why I'm shouting out to you guys. But I guess, you know, like we're towards the end of the podcast. We're getting a little late. So I want to end it with my last movie. And I want to start off by saying rest in peace, Sean Connery. You know, James Bond actor. But in this movie, 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We talked about the Temple of Doom last week, was not a good sequel. This one, the third of the franchise, Indiana Jones, his dad decides to be part of the whole adventure and just happens to be Sir Sean Connery. And they brought it back to the Nazi regime, which they didn't do in part 2. And they brought a lot of part 1, which was more like I said, in part 1 was kind of religious. You're talking about the Ark. Part 2, they went a totally different, separate way. Part 3, they brought us back to the whole religious, trying to find the Holy Grail. So the way they did that, the way the movie was written, and the way, you know, you let your imaginations run, part 3 to me was, I want to say it's better than part 1.
Really?
Yeah, I want to say that part 1 brought us and introduced us to Indiana Jones, but part 3 introduced us to Henry Jones Jr. You know, it's like we knew him as Dr. Jones, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I'll you know what? I'll take your word on that one, because the thing about Indiana Jones is one of my dad's favorite characters in movie series. And he ran those movies into the ground. So I was kind of over they're all bad to me, because just I've seen them like a million times. But I did really when part 3 came out with Sean Connery, yes. I just remember him really like just thinking like that's like the perfect person to get to play Indiana Jones' dad. Yes. He has that look of like experience, and he's seen the world, and he's done all this, and then at the same time, he's cracking jokes on his son, like I'm the pro at this. You're just you're the rookie.
You're the rookie, and the fact that again, part 1 we found out he's an archaeologist. This is what he did. Part 2 didn't really tell us any backstories on Indiana Jones. Part 3 brought us on, they had was it not Joaquin Phoenix? River Phoenix played a young Indiana Jones in the beginning, the opening. Rest in peace, River Phoenix.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
They did that, and then they brought us back to like, Sean Connery, and Sean Connery is the dad, and he's an old archaeologist who's been looking for this. Not Grail. Yeah. Was it the Grail? The Holy Grail. He's been looking for the Holy Grail for his whole life. And then now his son's the one that ends up finding it. It's like, to me, it's like, wow. Right. It's like, wow. Right. So it's, it's one of those movies where it's like, again, if it's on TV right now, I'm watching it just because, that one end scene where he's like, he's a junior? He goes, he is a junior. He goes, I thought his name was Indiana. I was like, no, we named the dog Indiana.
So, that's a classic too. It's been such a while since I've seen that one. That scene where is that the same movie where they have to walk over like an invisible bridge, something like that. Yeah. That one actually, I think I might have to agree with you that one may be better than the others.
Just the whole concept of, you have Sean Connery's character, Dr. Jones Sr., who knew the thing step by step, knew the riddle step by step, knew exactly what they had to do step by step. And then now here's Indiana Jones coming there and have to decipher this whole thing, the leap of faith. That's what it was called. The invisible bridge was take a leap of faith. You must believe before you take that leap of faith. Again, it brought us back to like, if you're religious in some sort, you have to believe that the Grail is out there, and they believed it and they found it, and
they definitely did tap into the religious people's religious beliefs and that kind of mystery to that too. So
and they kept true to the storyline. I mean, like even the whole night, like the knights that's guarding the Holy Grail, that's true to a point because it's really the Knights Templar that's supposedly guarding the Grail. So they kept true to the story, and I kind of like how they did that. And, shout out to the writers for that, who's doing that.
Definitely, yeah. Well done. Done. And a good way to end off a series, I think.
Yes. Well, kind of, sort of, because they came out with part 4, and that was terrible.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God.
That was terrible. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for our sequel. Great movie sequels. I want to throw a shout out to Ro, because last week we did bad movie sequels, and he came out with a couple bad movie sequels that I totally did not read off for him. And I'm not saying that he's mad that I'm reading it or I didn't read it, but I just want to apologize for not reading it. But I think he did mention a couple of things that we talked about. Let me just see what he said. Of course, I can't find it. Sorry, Ro, I did not forget you from last week. There was a couple of things that you did say you didn't like, and I didn't forget you. I just didn't read it off for some reason.
Yeah, it's too much stuff, too much. Yeah, and real quick, I just want to, after last week's episode, I got a lot of feedback from people who were chiming in about, movies we missed or kind of for, some stuff for this week. And both of my brothers, Rocky and Johnny, yes, that's his name, Rocky. Shout out to them. Johnny told he had mentioned Dark Knight, agreed with us with that, and Rocky was the one that brought up Aliens as well. So you guys same age group, so I kind of feel like you grew up watching the same stuff. So a lot of what's on your list he gave me. And shout out to my parents, mom and dad, who I tried really hard to explain to them we want movie sequels like part 2. If this was all in the family group, and bless their hearts, they were shouting out all these great movies, but one of them was Ghost. I was like, Mom, there's not a part 2, so thank you for trying.
But Patrick Swayze in Ghost.
Thank you for trying. Maybe next time I'll word the question better. But appreciate you guys and everybody else who's chimed in and commented and sent messages this week.
Yeah, and we will forget. We will forget a couple ones. I mean, there's a whole list of movies out there, and if you Google bad movies, I think we touched on the good ones that the majority. If there's a top 10 list, I think we touched on that top 10 list.
I think so. Yeah.
Even in the bad movie sequels, there was a lot that I missed, and a lot we both missed, and we're only human. We were kind of going off on movies that either we watched, we liked. There's a good movie sequel out right now that I haven't even watched yet, and that's the original was Quiet Place, right?
Yeah.
And then the sequel is Quiet Place 2, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that out?
I think it's out.
Okay, I think it's out.
Yeah, I think Quiet Place 2 is out. And it's one of those movies where someone said, hey, Quiet Place 2. I wanted to bring that up, but I didn't watch that sequel, so I can't say Quiet Place 2 was better than Quiet Place 1. So, we will miss movies, bear with us on that. And, but if you guys are liking this kind of content, if you're liking the things we're doing, I mean, I'm enjoying this whole movie thing, especially for going back to, God, don't want to say it, but if we're going back to the 80s, it's like, sorry, Joe, I'm going to talk your ear off on that. You notice how I sounded so excited with Back to the Future and Indiana Jones, because those were the movies in my era,
Yeah,
it's like,
I know, definitely. That's why when you said Indiana Jones, I'm like, great. Because my dad, he was the same way. Just that was his favorite. On
Mr. Diaz, I agree with you. Indiana Jones. We can sit down together and we can talk about it. Except for part 2 and 4, we got to skip those.
Yeah.
Got to skip those. But again, if you guys are liking this podcast, definitely hit that like. There's a thing on the Anchor app where you guys can star our page. I am posting this on YouTube for all you guys who watched last week. All 12 of you guys who watched last week on YouTube, thank you for watching.
Shout out to you.
Shout out to you guys. And again, man, a few words right over my shoulder. Woken Up Woke, the daily podcast with me. If you guys haven't stopped listening to that, definitely stop on that. Woken Up Woke podcast last week. I had to break that down into 3 parts. Yeah. It's a little long, very entertaining. Trust me, it's very entertaining. Get on it. Get on it.
We're reining it in this week. Get on it. We're going to be a little more streamlined. Sober Sundays. So I'm actually going to hop off here now and head over to do that one and get that ready for you guys by tonight. So
nice. Joe, shout out to Joe, man, putting out 2 podcasts in a week, man.
Yeah, it's rough, man. Jeez. But you guys make it easy. Thank you to Eric B, my partner, who helps out a lot with putting the stuff up on YouTube and Anchor, because I wouldn't be able to do the other one without his help. So thank you, and thank you to Ro and Ev. Man, let's just continue doing this stuff, and then
we'll come up with another topic next week. What it will be, we'll let you know during the week. I love answering your questions or giving you guys shout outs. So if you guys are going to continue answering the questions, I did it a little late this week. I apologize. I tried to get it out on a Thursday, so I'm going to get it on a Thursday this week. So when Joe figures out, or we both figure out what we're going to talk about, I'll throw it out on our Instagram page, and then you guys give me your answer. And again, I'll shout out, what you guys say, what good movies or bad movies. But until Thursday, and until next week, we'll see you guys again.
Peace.
See ya.
You're listening to the Ordinary Joe's podcast.